to the Engaging African Realities podcast. Please join us as we engage scholars and practitioners in conversations about their experiences from the field and beyond. We hope to bring more awareness about the cutting-edge work going into bolstering the field of grounded African theology and opening new possibilities and frontiers of knowledge.
Nice talking to you, and I look forward to a healthy conversation. You have heard my name already, Rose Mary Amenga-Etego.
Yes. And you are currently with the University of Ghana, correct?
Yes, I am with the University of Ghana. I'm Associate Professor of Religious Studies and currently what you call the chair of the department.
Oh, nice. Wonderful. And what is your focus at the University of Ghana? I know you said you're with religious studies, but what areas of research or studies do you engage in and teaching?
I'm into gender studies, but my main subject area or discipline is in African Indigenous religions and rural development, sustainable rural development. And then I teach gender issues. Related subjects.
Wonderful. Well, we look forward to hearing about some of it during today's podcast.
Thank you.
So, Professor Amenga-Etego, could you please tell us a little bit about your experience being a former Nagel grantee?
Yes, I was. And one of the issues or the first part of it is how to form a team to apply for the grant. First, you need to get to know if you have partners and who those could be, who be interested in the topic, the area, not necessarily the detailed rubric of the topic that you want to work on. And when you have interest, you also want to find out if you can get somebody who will host the projects that you are going to work on, because that's an integral part of it. And so at the time that my colleagues, at least the first two were interested, there was a third person, I was looking for a fourth person. I was there. And the question was, could you not only be a member, because we needed somebody who had the background that you have in African Indigenous religions, since its input was essential in this program that we're doing, but also who could host the project for us. And so that was how I came in, and eventually also had to bring somebody who was working in the area of theology into the field, into the team, so that together we could co-host, and I needed somebody who would support me on the ground. So that's how it went. So the first priority is to get a team. And to get the team, you must know what the team members are bringing into the project, what role they will be playing. It helps to sort things out from the beginning, and it provides a foundation for what you're going to do. If only they buy into and they know why they are coming in and know that they are important from the word go. Their information is necessary, but their presence and contribution at every level is essential, because that is why they are coming in.
So how did you hear about the Nagel Institute? Through your peers, or was it by happenstance?
I'd heard about the institutes and their programs, I think a year or two before. We had the flyers. One of our senior colleagues, Professor Cephas Omenyo, had talked about the project to colleagues in the department. We had a few flyers, I think a year or two before, and we're encouraged to participate. And but we didn't push to the end. We couldn't make up our mind to work on it. So the following year, I think they tried, but I'm not sure whether they went ahead with it or not. But after encouraging us, colleagues, to participate, they also did something. But I don't know how far they went with their project. So the following year, colleagues invited me, as I said, some other colleagues, I think, with suggestions from Professor Faye to enroll people from Ghana into the project. So I believe he might have given them my name to find out if I would be interested in the project.
Okay.
So that's it. Yeah.
So after you went through the application process and your team made it through, what did you all finally propose as the focus of your project?
Our project was a multidimensional project.
Okay.
As I said, we had different personalities and team members coming in, and they each came in with an area that was interesting. So even though it was in the area of literature and different types of literature from the African background, we weaved it around the area of literature, prayer, in Proverbs, as sources of African indigenous religions. So that made the work, each one of us could find ourselves, our individuality was in the project, but at the same time, it formed a team that we could work with. So while somebody was looking at rediscovering African indigenous spirituality through Christian songs, Igbo Christian songs and prayers, another was exploring indigenization in terms of Christology and gender. Another was looking at the issues of new religious movements from literature, existing literary works. While another was looking for the contributions of indigenous initiative into mission work. And another was looking at songs, specifically with backgrounds of indigenous spirituality. So you could find a team that went through them that we're all exploring some form of proverbs or literature or songs, and they all dealt with the indigenous communities and how they represented what we call religion or Christianity from different perspectives. So that's individuality, at the same time collectivity of the different aspects of African spirituality made our team, brought the synergy that we needed, yet we could find ourselves involved in. And I think that is part of African lifestyle. I always tell, sometimes I talk to others and I say that African, it's like dance, the folk dance. You stand around a circle to show that you are one, but at one point, one person comes in and dances, bringing out their individual skills and talent to the dance floor. After that, they get back into the circle and then they sing together again. And so you have the individuality, but you also have the communal spirituality that goes on. And I think that is what our team sought to achieve. What was interesting is that our team was made up of 5 people, a large team for that matter, very large for that type of grant. And we were scattered around the world, I should say, one in Canada, one in the US, 2 in Ghana, 1 in Nigeria. And we had the research base in Africa, in West Africa for that matter, in Ghana and Nigeria. So we had a lot of movements around, which maybe took the bulk of our resources, but also enable us to share ideas and to make sure that a distance doesn't prevent people from working. You could be outside the continent, but you could be a very important team member in the work. And so we were able to work during before, during, and even after the process of going through all these things that we had to go through. And one of the ways that we maintained our presence, it was through the social media. We made a lot of calls, WhatsApp calls, Skype meetings, and it was interesting. Sometimes the networks were not doing well, and you'll be using multiple, at the same time. And it was very interesting to find out that you'll be doing Skype and somebody cannot get into Skype, and then the WhatsApp call is on the other side, and yet we are able to communicate, to have a meeting, virtual meeting, and then go back and work. And for me, it was the learning process for I think not just me, but most of us.
So basically, you all were virtual before the pandemic. You were already practicing working virtually.
Virtual meetings,
Yes.
That's really good. That's really good. Professor, thank you so much for sharing. One of the things I'm curious about is, as you and your team entered into this research project, did you have any expectations or ideas about the project and the direction that it would go in that might have changed or shifted as you carried on or moved forward with the project? I'm just curious about what changes you might have seen based as you move midway or towards the end compared to where you were in the beginning with your expectation.
Yes, and a number of fronts. And I must say that's one of the things that I liked about the Nagel project, the ability to adjust at any point in time. When we started the project, as I said, we had the individual projects and then the group project. As a group, we wanted to have a very big film, documentary film, not the size of it, but the scope of it and the quality of it. We expected more. We had a good budget for it. We thought it was a good budget, but in the end, it could not. It could not meet what we wanted to really do. So we had to reorganize that aspect with the approval of Nagel team. So that's from the grand project level, but not in the text itself. The second aspect was on the individual projects. So even though it was individuals were having their own identity, you realize that some people had the scope of the field work, of the individual field work, so broad. So maybe you want to, for instance, a colleague wants to do the songs and prayers of churches, but wants to think about maybe 3 communities, okay? And you realize that if one person, you only have so much of the budget, and you want to look at 3 different communities, it will be, or maybe 6 churches in particular, it becomes too much to accommodate the little amount that you have. Apart from that, you also have time constraint, So they had to rethink about the size, the scope that the individual could work on and produce what they wanted to produce. And I said, I'm happy about Nagel for that part because the PA works wonderfully in that direction. So if you have meetings with your PA, and the PA has the opportunity to come around and meet the team to discuss. So the PA can adjust, help you to adjust. I said, okay, you don't need all 6 churches or all 6 meeting of communities to be able to produce what you have. Perhaps you need 3. You can just do half of it because you are just one team member, And now that you realize that it's 2 years and your field time, you maybe need less than 1 whole year to be able to gather the material, it is not enough time for you to deal with all the nuances that you want to deal with. But these same nuances can be achieved, that you want to present can be achieved from looking at 3 distinct ones still within the communities that you want to work. And so the PA is able to help the adjustment from the first onset, the meeting that you have, before you even begin to encounter them later into your work. So once you adjust from the beginning, then you are at the same level and you are able to move on. And so the PA role for me is very essential, from the project, developing a project, and implementing the project. So by the time you are implementing, if you realize that there are problems, it may be the project is a bit bigger than what the time that you need and the budget and all the other resources that you need to work with, then you and the PA can work at that moment to enable the implementation stage to go smoothly. And I think when this was done, we had a smooth journey.
So you mentioned earlier that you and your respective team members were all in different countries all at once. So could you talk a little bit more about how you all went about conducting your field work and your research?
Just a little bit of correction there.
Okay.
2 members were from Legon, 2, the theologian and the indigenous scholar myself, who were from Legon here. And that was the project's host institution.
Okay.
So we then had the other 3 straddling Nigeria, Canada, and the US.
Okay.
And so we agreed from the onset to have different budget strategies, because distance will also increase costs, because each of them, or each one of us, have our research field in West Africa. So the one in Canada had the research field in Ghana. So we have 3 people in Ghana doing research, even though one is in Canada and had to travel to come and do the field work. And then we had 2 people doing the field work in Nigeria, even though they also one had to travel from the US back to Nigeria to do it. And so we could say that 3 in Ghana, and it was gender sensitive, 2 female and 1 male in Ghana. And out of the 2 females, 1 is the one in Canada who had to calm down, and then the other one in Ghana here. So that was interesting. And then you have the Nigerian section, 1 male, 1 female, and the male was outside and had to travel back into Nigeria. So we had to adjust, as I said, to these things. So that itself means that it's not about equality of distribution of resources, but equity.
Yes.
And so I think team members have to sometimes understand the dynamics and work with it.
Yeah, you just answered a follow-up question that I had, and about navigating equity and equality within the budget, but you already answered the question. Yeah. Go ahead, Alisa.
Yes, I think one of the other questions I would have is, and even throughout your response, you described a lot of challenges that you would have to overcome, the challenges of distance, working as a team that maybe have different backgrounds. Were there additional challenges that you might have had to face, that you had to overcome as a team? And how did you work through those?
Most of the challenges we had were just at the team level. And it's, as I said, we're in different parts of the continent, the African continent, European continent, and the Americas, So we were traveling these 3 different continents. And so we had first to deal with meetings. But one was overcome because we were able to go to have a meeting in which all of us were present, and I said the team was able to adjust in terms of managing the budget and making room for each other. So we met in the first international conference in Princeton, and then just before the beginning of our project commencement. So we're able to meet face to face for once at the beginning. All of us, we got to know each other face to face, because at the beginning of the conference, we didn't know each other that much, and we had not met, some of us had not met each other, but in faith, we worked together and we got excited about what we're doing. So we met each other, we met our PA, we had a lovely discussion. And so that helped the project. And from that onset, the budget already we had understood the issue of equitability, because those coming from Africa already know. We arrange the budget in such a way that those coming from Africa to the Americas were able to take a little more than those who were already in Europe and so forth. So that understanding and being able to meet and to discuss and to make adjustments at the beginning helped us. Again, we're able to travel, not the whole team at this time, but some members of the team, with the support of the others, were able to go to Brazil for a conference in which we presented our project. Even though there were 3 of us who went, we presented the entire project at that conference. So we have the individuality, but we have this team synergy because it runs around. So we could easily talk about the project in one go as a unit. So we're able to do that. So we're able to present the project in a single front, even though members are not there, and we could all contribute to it. And this was made possible because we shared report writing. In terms of report writing, everybody brings their share of the report for you to collate. But we share the information that each person brings. So we discuss what we are doing because of the Skype and then WhatsApp calls that we're making. So we knew what was going on, the difficulties that we each had, and when we had to make an adjustment, what to look for to do those adjustments. So we're able to begin to deal with that. But we also had built in our work a conference in Ghana here, which meant that apart from traveling for field work, traveling for conferences, we needed to travel back to Ghana and meet and have a conference. And it also supported the film that we're doing, So it was a kind of a roller coaster. You move from one stage to another. And I guess there was this excitement about the fact that we came from different fields and we could, discuss each other's work, from literary works of novels to prayer and dancing, to the formation of churches, to indigenous music, and indigenous contributions to Christian ideas. It all kind of worked out for us that there was always some kind of excitement about one thing or the other that helped us. But the other part that we really had to work on was being able to meet the timelines, reporting schedules. And not only reporting schedules, but financial reporting schedules. You are accountable for the reports, but also for the financial aspect of it. And as a team leader, that was, I would say, my personal challenge, to be able to insist that I want your colleague, you're telling your colleague that I want your report, you are getting late, I need it because it is not the deadline that you need to submit to Nigel, but you have to put the report together. So I need your report timely to be able to put that report together for Nigel. And to be able to push, even if they say, I'm waiting for some information, say, look, I cannot wait for you to wait for another information. And so there's this push and pull between the team leader and colleagues. Some are able to meet deadlines easily. Some, for some reason, maybe not always, but they would delay in certain times. And being able to be, to hold them accountable, to be somehow conscious of the fact that they have need, but also conscious of the fact that the whole project will run into trouble if one person fails. And so you learn to hold somebody accountable and to pressurize one person to deliver on time. It's something that I think every project leader maybe have gone through. And when it comes to accounting, it's even worse because sometimes the team is looking for the money immediately because they have to go to the field. Yes. The team leader is waiting for the host institution, which has its own management frameworks, to meet the management frame. My institution has a very robust management framework, but it's accountable. And our project had an accountant who we can talk to and we submit our documents to. but it has to go through approval with like any other project, so that the project accountant and the project team leader cannot just mess up with the budget, and the team will be held responsible, or the university will be held responsible. So you have to give me your needs quickly. It must align with the timeline of the budget. That is whether Nigel sends us 25% or 20%. It must align with that.
Yes.
And it must come in on time to meet the framework of my institutional timeline for receiving money, applying and receiving money. So you see that sometimes you have these multiple channels, and your team leader says, I needed the money yesterday. And I said, okay, but I got the information today. Yes. And the university will give me X dates. So that's multiple way of accountability, and we have to learn it, because unlike other projects, the money is maybe you are having your money and you go around for your project. So when you need, you move.
Yes.
But in this case, you are accountable to your team leader. Your team leader is accountable to the university and your host institution, and your host institution is also accountable to Nigel. And so I think I didn't have a problem as long as I met the rules. I did the application, met the timeline. I always got my money. But then and even if you had to readjust your budget, and for my institution, that's the interesting part. For instance, we had to adjust one of the budget lines for films. We took money from it to do something else with approval of Nigel. And my host institution says that until we see the copy of that letter, we are not moving the budget, because the project says that they must give approval. And so I will have to also send the correspondence that I sent to Nigel for the approval to the institution, for them to be sure that I'm not just cutting corners, and because they have signed to the agreement that Nigel must give approval to any change in the budget.
Yes.
So once Nigel has given approval to the change in the budget, they must have a copy of it before they can allow the change and make effect the change in the budget for us. So it was interesting, but as working with team, and when sometimes the team members who are not on the ground need the money, it can be challenging and nerve-wracking. So I think that is another area that is good. For me, I enjoyed it, and I learned so much from the process of because I had never done that, being a third person or a middle person in terms of negotiating with Nigel, with team members, and with my own institution when it comes to funding. And yet at the same time, when it comes to reporting, it's another, different level of renegotiating the rubrics of what it means to work as a team. And that was interesting. I think I took that. I learned a lot from that, and it's really very interesting for me now in a different position.
Thank you for listening to the first half of our interview. To hear more, please stay tuned for the release of the next episode. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment.